Now I'm going to show you how to do the binding all the way around the apron. It's actually very simple, just a few steps. And here you can see how lovely it will look if you just keep to a few of the rules of bias binding. And we've already sewn around it so it can't go anywhere. So your next step now is to cut it back. And I would do it quite smartish, especially if you're working with checks and stuff and you've actually done it so you were sewing on the line. So if you cut like 2 millimeters off that, you absolutely know that your binding will sit perfectly. So take your binding, again, if you are a beginner, please do use a wider binding. The binding will go on the edge here, and the wider part of the binding obviously needs to sit underneath, and the slimmer part will sit on the top. So you take that now and you just place it at the top of your apron. And then you just put it on, but you make sure that you put it on so that there is an overhang, so that we have something that we can pull so it doesn't get stuck at the very beginning, because it likes to do that and that's none too pleasant. So there we go, all the way around. Hop over to the sewing machine and get yourself ready. I can cut it off as well. Don't need to, but you can. And now I'm going to put it under here, and as you can see, right, I leave a little bit hanging at the top. It's so important. You want to be able to have something that you can pull on. And then we're just going to put the apron in right into that fold, but don't push it too much, because that will then get the top part of your binding to push out. And I think if you've already done that before, you'll know that that's really easy. So it just goes into the fold, but don't overdo that. And then you just hold it steady and you feed in your bias binding always straight. When you come to the curve, you need to grab your apron with the left hand and you literally pull it round while the binding is fed in straight. But you can see that I'm holding it over a tiny bit to the left, because as I go round, I need the needle to catch it, otherwise it wouldn't catch it, right? So if you watch very closely, you can see me do that. It's ever so slightly to the left and then over. Normally I say don't look at the needle, but here you really need to do that. You need to practice this and always make sure that the edge of that binding is right on the edge of the left side of that presser foot. I use a Pfaff machine. I've got a clear presser foot here, so it's very easy to see. This will take practice, but as long as you keep to the rules, and that is to feed in your bias binding straight when you go around the curve with a tilt to the left, but only like a millimeter or so, and then it becomes straight as it goes right up to the needle. And then it's really easy to do the long stretch. Phew! I do like that when it's all straight. And then we have to do the same thing again on the other side. Again, don't pull your bias binding, you pull the apron. There you go. See, now you can see how I just shimmy it around, so when it goes in it's straight, but I put it in and it's not straight, and then I move it over with my fingers. And that will take practice, obviously. You know, it's not something that you can do straight away. I would say if you're a beginner, please don't use the slim binding. Get yourself a wider binding for it. And of course, if you don't want to bind it at all, you could go over to the Christmas apron, which is also in the Academy, and see how you do it when you don't bias bind it. All you need is an extra facing, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Here you can see that on board bias binding, often it's not as perfect as what you would make at home, so it was a bit wider, but it worked okay. It looks really nice. When I turn it over in the places that the bias binding was wider, the under one, it is not quite as nice, but then again, nobody sees that anyway. you know, it's not really that important. Then I just cut off the edges, cut it straight here, because the next step is to put the waistband and the ties on, and then we're actually done. So I see you there. Hope you're enjoying it. Bye for now.